Okay, so my name is Kaylin Smith, and today we're going to be talking about this semester's Riall lecture speaker. I'm with Danielle today, and we're going to be giving our summaries of the lecture itself, and then a little discussion on how we felt about it, and then we're going to be talking about a couple articles that we read related to broadcasting and how it's used in the classroom. So, this semester's Raw lecture speaker was Rafe Esquith, and he's a celebrated teacher from Los Angeles, California. His ability to reach his students in unique ways is incredible. Rafe teaches fifth grade at Hobart Elementary, and the majority of his students are minorities who are English language learners. The neighborhood he teaches in is regularly plagued with gang violence and drugs, but Rafe has found a way to keep his students off of the street and have them develop a deep love of school and learning. In a school where 68% of students do not graduate, how does Rafe manage to do this? Well, one of the first things Rafe told us was that great teachers ask the difficult questions. Great teachers go beyond the basic curriculum and teach students the tough lessons that will allow them to be successful in the future. Rafe does not believe in rewarding good behavior, so he's often asked why his students choose to behave so well. Um, he responded by telling us that he begins each school year with teaching his students about Kohlberg's 6 stages of moral development. Stage 1 is doing work to avoid trouble. Stage 2 is doing something to receive a reward. Stage 3 is doing something in order to just please the teacher. Stage 4 is doing something simply because it is the rule. Stage 5 is doing stuff out of respect for others. And then the sixth and final stage is when students internalize the code of behavior for themselves. Rafe believes by forcing students to evaluate why it is they do the things they do, they're being held more accountable and will then opt to do things because it's what's right. Um, Rafe thinks that as a teacher, you are the ultimate role model for your students, meaning that whatever you do is showing them what is acceptable. So you have to be the one showing them how is the appropriate way to act. Rafe treats his students with respect and as equals, and this is why they behave. Rafe's teaching style is unique in a number of ways. To begin with, Rafe teaches his students all of the books that are banned from being taught in schools. And his reasoning for this is that they're going to be exposed to the content from these books at some point in their lives anyway, out in the world. So he would rather that be in his classroom so that he can provide the feedback and support they need. He believes in teaching life lessons, and he does this in one way by teaching students how to handle money and like pay bills. He uses this website, and his students learn about applying for jobs, earning money, paying rent and taxes, and they learn about property ownership. He also lets his students learn to play various instruments and perform Shakespearean plays. And he thinks that when students become passionate about something and they work together and they can express themselves through art, the work becomes so much more meaningful to them and they can connect with it. Um, Rafe students often cry at the end of the year when they have to leave him, and many of them keep in touch with them throughout their lives. How incredible it must be to become that close with your students and have that big of an impact on their lives. Uh, Rafe urges all of us to realize that teaching is not about how well you can get your students to perform on the test, but watching to see how far they've gone in their life years after they've left your classroom. I think I can speak for all of us when I say that I hope when I'm a teacher, I can have that sort of effect on some of my students as well. Rafe is an extraordinary teacher and person, and I think that we could all learn a little something from him.
Um, like you said, Rafe is from he teaches in a Los Angeles school. This is his 32nd year as a public school teacher. He teaches at a school where 92% live under the poverty level. Um, 32% only 32% finish high school, and like you said, only 68% of students don't finish high school. The main thing he really talked about was how his students behave so well, and then he gave a quote saying that you are a role model, you must be the person you want your kids to be. And like you said, showing respect to your students and having them respect you is a way of being a role model. He also talked about how he takes his kids every year on a field trip. One year they went to DC, one year they went to New York, and usually sometimes he takes 50 students at a time, and it's just him and his wife as chaperones. And doing this also is a way to show that his students know how to behave even outside of the classroom in a public place, showing how what he does in the classroom can be done outside of the school in public with people they don't know. He also talked about how he doesn't really focus on the test at the end of the year. He just focuses on teaching them life lessons that they can take with them through middle school, high school, even into college, and then into their adulthood, and how they can benefit from what he learned, he teaches them. Like, he focuses on teaching, like you said, the banned books, which give him a chance to bring their life experiences into the classroom and even relate to the characters in the book. He reads to the kids every day. First, he starts off reading it, and then he'll pick a student to read a couple sentences, maybe a couple paragraphs, and then he'll read again, and he'll go around the classroom and have students read from that book that day. What I thought was good was how he he did the My Classroom economy thing, where he had students apply for jobs, pay for rent to sit at their desk, and even at the end of the year, he had them fill out tax forms. And this, I think, is a good way to practice for when they get older. I feel like if my teachers did this when I was younger, I would be way more prepared than I am now. Thinking about that now, I feel like I have no clue what I'm going to do after college. I still live with my parents. Maybe my parents will teach me stuff, but I feel like the kids in Rafe's classroom will know more than what students and people in college do now. Um, some of the things I liked was how he talked about his his previous students that have moved on to high school and college. How one of the stories he talked about was a boy named Felix, and how Felix, when he was in Rafe's classroom, was known for his long hair. And then when he went to high school, he came back and visited Rafe, and Rafe um, found out that he had shaved his head, and he asked him Felix why, and Felix said that a girl in his classroom in high school had cancer and people were making fun of her and stuff, so he shaved his head to support her and her cause, which I thought was a great way to show how he had a personal connection with Felix, and how Felix always went to visit Rafe and shared his experiences that he has in high school and how he learned from Rafe and what he taught. He also talked about how another student um, wrote to him when she went to college, and how he reads that letter every day before he goes into the classroom in the morning, because it reminds him of how much he has taught the students, how much he means to these students, and how what they learn in his classroom stays with them throughout the years to come. And my last thing I guess I can talk about was how he focuses on Shakespeare, how he thinks that having the students come together with art, drama, music, um, teaches them that school is also school is a place for you to learn, but also for you to have fun. And learning through Shakespeare and having them learn new instruments and stuff is a great way for him to bond with his students, and even for his students to bond with each other. And I feel like if I was taught in fifth grade about Shakespeare and was able to do Shakespeare's plays, I would have way more interest in like poetry and when I read Shakespeare in high school, way more information on that. So I feel like nowadays teachers are more focused on the test at the end of the year, how they want to make sure that their school has the best scores in the county, and teachers aren't really focused on that personal connection with their students. Is more of a school connection, and that's all. And I feel like out of my years in middle school, elementary school, high school, that I only had a personal connection with a few teachers, and I feel like if more teachers were like Rafe, I would have had way more, had a better experience than I did in some of my schools. So I hope to be a teacher like Rafe and have a personal connection with my students and even their families to get to know them better.
Yeah, I agree with the things that you were saying. I definitely agree about the my classroom economy thing. I know that when I graduated high school, I knew nothing about writing checks. I knew nothing about paying bills. I didn't know how to fill out my taxes. I still don't really know how to fill out my taxes. So I think that
I'm the same way.
I think that, teaching kids that so early, that's such a good thing to do because I mean, yeah, I'm navigating it now and I'm figuring it out kind of how we all are, but like if we had known that so much earlier, we would have been so much more prepared for life and whatever. And um, that was one of the quotes he said that I really, really liked. He said that he wanted, after every lesson, he wanted his students to feel and say to him that because I learned this lesson, my life just got better. And I think that's such a great way to think about teaching. And I do agree that we're such in a time that teachers are so like there's so much pressure on them, so they get so wrapped around the test scores and stuff like that that they forget that that's not that's not why you're teaching. You're not teaching to get your kids to pass the test. And if you are, maybe you probably
Yeah.
shouldn't be a teacher. You're teaching because you love kids and you want to inspire them. You want them to love learning. You want them to be successful later on. And passing a test isn't necessarily going to show that. So I think he is really great in that sense. And I do think we have a lot that we can learn from him. Maybe we're not all going to be Rafes in our time, but that's something that you can strive for. So I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the lecture, and I really think that it's something that we can take away and hopefully kind of internalize and keep in the back of our minds as we're going through our teaching careers, and hopefully we can inspire the way that he does.
I totally agree.
So, the article I read related to broadcasting was the Technological Pedagogical Content Knowledge in Action, and it's a case study of a middle school digital documentary project. And at a glance, the project was about two groups of sixth grade students, and it was their teachers trying to get them to create these 5-minute documentaries about like a historical figure. That was the
Mhm.
basis of the project, but what the project really was about how we're pushing so hard to integrate technology into our classrooms, but we sometimes forget that it's a lot harder than just assigning the project and having them go off and do it. There's a lot of things that go into making a effective technology project. So the focus of the study was to see how teachers are dealing with this and how they're applying that to the projects that they're setting forth. And so the study, they had the students create the documentaries. They had them go through the whole research process, the making the scripts. They had to make storyboards, and then they had to obviously film their documentaries and then publish them. And all of the classes were successful in that, but they did find bugs here and there that were a little bit of obstacles for them. So what they found was that while the projects did work as a whole, there were things maybe that they hadn't considered beforehand before teaching them. So it was the whole article was really about how you have to access it from so many different ways and have all of those things kind of interconnect to create a meaningful technology project, and how it's more than just the project itself. There's a lot that goes into it. So it was just something to consider in that aspect.
All right. Well, I did the Learning in Hand article about podcasting, and it really talked about how teachers have their students watch podcast episodes to either listen to or just watch, whatever. And on their laptops or like in the classrooms now they have iPads, and this was a way to either have them learn on their own, like sitting at their desk for like individual time, or they can be at the library, or even on field trips, teachers had them watch the podcast. They can even take these links to the episodes at home and watch them too for like homework. And then the other part of the article talked about how students can create their own product and how it benefits their education in like the different subjects like science, math, history. It also talked about how they share them worldwide, so they get not just audience from the United States, but audience from like China or France or South Africa. And I thought that this was a great way to have teachers assess them, because it talked about how having a real world audience gives purpose and motivation for the students to create a good product. Because I feel like if students just did it to share with their classmates or another class in the school, they wouldn't really give much effort into it. But knowing that other people from different countries would hear this, it gives them more motivation to make sure it's a good product and gives information that they really need these people to know on this subject. Like if history, they were talking about like the Civil War, they could talk like in depth about it and make sure the people who didn't live in the United States, who don't really learn about this, know about it and what happened years after due to the event. And it also just talked about, like I said, cross-curricular experience, meaning like they can go from one subject to another, or like different lesson plans and like different classrooms and bringing them together. So I thought this was a really good article, and I definitely will use this somehow in my classroom. I know nowadays with the iPads in the classrooms, you can do a lot more technology stuff. So I feel like having podcast episodes for students to watch would be a great way to integrate technology into the classrooms.
Yes, so just as kind of a recap, we were talking about the Riall lecture and, Rafe's teaching strategies and how that works, and then we furthered that on to talking about technology in the classroom, and so hopefully you learned a little something today, and thanks for listening.